Hello everyone. It is so wonderful to have you here as we dive into a foundational piece of your governance toolkit, the AI Acceptable Use Policy or AUP. In professional terms, an AI Acceptable Use Policy is a formal set of rules and guidelines established by an organization to outline the permitted and prohibited ways employees and contractors can interact with AI technologies. In simple words, it is the do's and don'ts list for using AI at work. You've probably seen a general internet use policy at your office that says you can't visit certain websites. The AI AUP is just like that, but specifically for tools like ChatGPT or specialized machine learning software. Imagine you give your teenager the keys to the car. You don't just say drive safe, you give them specific rules about speed limits and passengers. That is what we are doing for our employees. We want them to innovate, but we need to set the guardrails first so they don't accidentally drive the company into a ditch. When we draft the AUP, we must clearly define prohibited use cases, which are specific applications or behaviors involving AI that are strictly forbidden due to high risk, ethical concerns, or legal restrictions. In simple terms, these are the red zones. For example, you might decide that using AI to evaluate employee mental health or using it to create deepfakes of executives is completely banned. Let's break this down together. I once worked with a marketing firm where an employee thought it would be efficient to upload confidential client contracts into a public AI to summarize them. They weren't trying to be bad, they just didn't have a rule book telling them no. By clearly listing what is forbidden, you remove the guesswork for your team. Stay with me here because knowing what not to do is the first step toward knowing what to do, which brings us right into our next step, which is managing data input and privacy. A massive part of any AUP is data input restrictions, the guidelines that control what kind of information, such as trade secrets, personally identifiable information, or sensitive financial data, can be fed into an AI system. In simple words, it's a rule about what you're allowed to feed the machine. You've probably seen the headlines about companies accidentally leaking secret code because engineers used AI to debug it. We teach our employees a very simple rule. If you wouldn't shout it in a crowded elevator, don't type it into a public AI. In the AUP, we categorize data into green for public info, yellow for internal stuff, and red for secrets. This makes it easy for a non-technical person to know if they are about to make a mistake. The AUP must also mandate human-in-the-loop verification, which is the requirement that a human must review, validate, and take responsibility for any AI-generated content or decisions before they are finalized or published. In simple terms, the AI is the intern and you are the boss. You would never let an intern send $1 million proposal to a client without reading it first, right? The same applies here. We include a clause in the AUP that says, you are responsible for the AI's mistakes. If the AI hallucinates a fake law or a wrong math calculation and you send it out, that's on you. I remember a legal assistant who used AI to find case law and ended up citing cases that didn't exist. If they had followed a clear AUP, they would have known they had to double check every single citation. Our policy must address disclosure requirements, which are the rules regarding when and how an employee must inform others that a piece of content or a decision was assisted by AI. In simple words, it's about showing your work. If you write a blog post using AI, should there be a label? If a customer is talking to a bot, do they need to know it's not a human? Let's break this down together. Transparency builds trust. Our AUP should specify the exact labels to use. Stay with me here, because being sneaky with AI is the fastest way to ruin your company's reputation. I've seen that when companies are upfront and say, this summary was generated by AI and reviewed by a human, people actually appreciate the honesty. It moves the technology from a secret to a service. But even with the best rules on paper, they won't work if they are written in lawyer speak that nobody reads. Which brings us to our final step, policy accessibility and training. The final part of drafting an AUP is ensuring accessibility and attestation. Meaning, the policy is written in plain language, is easy to find, and requires employees to formally acknowledge that they have read and understood it. In simple words, it's making sure the rules aren't hidden in a dusty drawer. As a governance professional, I always say, a policy that isn't understood is just a piece of paper. We want to turn the AUP into a living document. This means holding short training sessions, using simple posters in the break room, and making sure the attestation, the digital I agree button, is part of the onboarding process. When everyone knows the rules, the whole culture shifts from fear of AI to responsible use of AI.